game, it's only right I win. So go down with the greats as deserved, you can't just write them in. We made it through all kind of sin. Born in this cold world, and hip-hop changed my life again. Hip-hop. You think you're winning, but you're in it for the fast prop.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is your boy T Knight, and this is another episode of First Night Out. And this episode is basically an emotional episode for me because it was sparked by, I would say, he's not as young as everybody think he is, but I mean, he's pretty much in the same age group as I am. I'm 38, and I think G.Herbo is probably in his 30s. I don't know. I didn't fact check that, but I'm pretty sure he grew up in the same era as me. And like a lot of us, I was born in 87. So when Micheal Jordan was in the peak of his career or in the height of his career, which was in 1984, I was born in 87. So between 84 and I want to say when I started watching basketball, I was probably like 6. So that puts me 1993 actually like understanding, looking at, following basketball. And then like thinking like 94, like it became my actual favorite sport to watch and just learn and study. Like a lot of us, we had a lot of hoop dreams, even though I had asthma, but it didn't deter me from playing basketball with my friends and going in the alley, mimicking all the moves, shooting. Um, and so when in 94, yes, we had the Like Mike, commercial, and he was on top of the world, had just won a championship, and then he exits out the NBA world. So to a 7-year-old, 6, 7-year-old like myself, not really understanding who actually Micheal Jordan was. I mean, yeah, it was championships, but as far as like the historical information that you get from actually watching live and watching with your own, point of view of how great someone is, that was missing from me. And this is just my opinion. So when people talk about how great Micheal was when he first got his MVP, when he won Defensive Player of the Year, when he did the dunk contest, when he did all these extravagant things, I didn't see the Barcelona dream team. I didn't, with my own eyes. I mean, of course, with people talking about it and talking about how great he was, that's fine and all. But with me, my own two big, beautiful eyes, as my mother would say, like these two things here, and just looking at, what's in front of me, like I didn't see the height of his career. And so the other day, G.Herbo, he basically said something to a lot of people who think that it was very controversial. Derrick Rose means more to Chicago than Micheal Jordan. Now, I have heard a lot of think pieces on this, and I think that they're very valid. They're very on point. It has to do a lot of things, and not just basketball in itself and the accolades and the accomplishments, but more of a generational. It could be generational. It could be a lot of factors. How people feel, the economic impact. It could be a lot of things, but from you know for me, being 38, like I just mentioned, I didn't see Micheal Jordan's peak. When he did win majority of his accolades, I just saw the tail end. I saw when he came back, in 94, 95, when those 17 games he played with Scottie Pippen. Yeah, they went on a little run. They was 14-3 or something like that, and qualified as fourth in the Eastern Conference standing. And just like everybody else, I saw them get beat by the Orlando Magic. And and it wasn't something that was close, like it came down to a game 7 or something. It was a beatdown. And so with that, like, that kind of took away the mystique, the you know, like, I thought he was unbeatable. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, 94, 95 was 7 going on 8. It already had been 2 years since he retired. I grew up, with my own eyes watching Reggie Miller, watching Shaquille O'Neal. Who else during it? Grant Hill was coming up. Your Kevin Garnett's, your Jason Kidds, winning, Rookie of the Year, Hakeem Olajuwon, your Patrick Ewings, your Larry Johnsons, your Alonzo Mournings, your Glenn Robinson. Like, these were the people that when you watch basketball during this little 2-year stretch that Michael wasn't a part of it, that became my world. You know what I'm saying? Like, watching Scottie Pippen kind of be the hero. And so, yeah, when he came back, lost against the Magic, and then the next year, people do not realize that there were a lot of factors that went into why that team, to be honest, was a super team. And we didn't really think about super teams until, people feel like when LeBron went on the Miami Heat, when he teamed up with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, that was the first impression of a super team. But no, it wasn't. When you really dig deep into the the breakdown of that 95-96 Bulls team and why they won 72 games when they were the first team to ever win 70 games, you have to think about the makeup, the style of play, who was on that team. So just look at the starting lineup in itself. And I'm gonna get to the point of who I feel is the GOAT of Chicago. So I'm just taking you through a perspective of how I see things and why I think certain people in my mind are, highly regarded as the GOAT of a particular city, or even, even a little LeBron James versus Michael Jordan debate, which I'm gonna have at some point. But here, so that 95-96 team, remarkable. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, that was a great feat. First you had, Phil Jackson. Looking back, the man won 11 championships and a total as a coach. Very unheard of. Probably would never be duplicated ever again in life. Maybe, a coach may win 3 at the most during this day and age, and the age of free agency and stuff like that. So then when you look at the starting lineup, you have Michael Jordan. Like I said, during that time he had just came back, got back in, basketball shape. The greatest scorer of all time at that point, scoring over 32 points a game. Then you have Scottie Pippen, who a lot of people feel that was a great defender, top 50 all time at that point. Had a slew of accolades himself as far as defensively. He's shown that he could have carried the team. The first year without Michael Jordan, I think they won 57 games, which is, any other year would be number 1 seed on a lot of Eastern Conference teams. They had Horace Grant, during that 94-95 team, or 93-94 team that carried them to 57. Then the next year they had a little drop off or whatever. And then, of course, Mike came back for those final 17 games. But to further just thinking about the team, like, Scotty was a clear number 1 that could have easily, potentially got a championship. When Isaiah Thomas said that, Scotty and that team was enough to win, I truly believe that. Then you have Tony Kukoc, who in a lot of documentaries, even that Dream Team first documentary where they talked about how Tony Kukoc was the next up and coming. They couldn't believe how good he was when he was in Croatia, and and how when they got him on the Bulls, they just thought that, they could carry. He was able to, carry the team to the next level. And so then you have Ron Harper. Uh, he joined the Bulls the previous season, and of course, he was in a different scheme, a different system. But when you look at Ron Harper's career prior to, the man was a 20-point per game scorer in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s, a 20-point per game scorer, which would have put him in the Hall of Fame had he just been on a good team, won championships, as the guy. But when he got on the Bulls, I mean, he was reduced to probably like third, fourth option in the triangle offense. And he was more of a tall guard that, ran point guard, and he was just a very good role player. And then you have Steve Kerr, who was basically probably one of the greatest shooters of all time at that point. He led the league in 3-point percentage. And matter of fact, the previous year, he led the league in, which I believe was the highest percentage of threes in NBA history at that point, which is still the mark to today. And then you have Luke Longley and Bill Winnington and Will Perdue, who were 3 7-footers. That's very unheard of, at the time. Then to round it off in the starting lineup, which I believe put them over the edge as far as being a super team, was Dennis Rodman. Now, you have your 7-footers who is a rim protector, and then you have your scorer. Then you have your defensive perimeter defender in Scottie Pippen. You have a tall guard in Ron Harper. Then you add Dennis Rodman, who basically was 16, 17, 18 rebounds a game. That's all he knew. Everybody knows that this man has a motor and that he can, get any rebound he put his mind to. He had some little offensive ability when he was, with the Detroit Pistons and a little bit with the Spurs. But when you put him, the defensive prowess, the great mind that Dennis had, yeah, like that was the piece of the puzzle that they needed to make them a super team. Then, to be honest, if you take Michael off that team and put Dennis on that team, just without Michael, they would have won 60 games easily. you know, with the way that team was coming together and being in the system for the second year, with Kerr, Harper, Pippen, Tony Kukoc, they were going to win a lot of games just by themselves. And, I think they were good enough. But then you add Michael Jordan. Yeah, super team. So with that super team, with the other 3 championships, yeah, in a lot of people's minds, like, hey, nobody cannot stop anybody from saying that Michael is the GOAT. Nobody can stop from him saying that he made a huge difference with Chicago. It meant a lot. Like everybody remember those days of rioting after the championship, and Chicago hasn't felt that way since. Of course, they went on to win 2 more championships, and this solidifies that era of Michael Jordan from 84 to 98 as the greatest run in not only Chicago sports history, but the NBA history as well. And I get all that, right? This not about that though. As long as I went on that long tangent about Michael Jordan, this is not about what he did as far as basketball wise, accolades and things like that. This is about how Chicago in general. I feel like we are a very blue collar city, and that anybody who has a get it out the mud mentality or do whatever it takes mentality, and they are from here, I feel like we gravitate towards those people, no matter what. Like, although Oprah did not grow up here, or she wasn't born here, but the fact that she came here in Chicago and she just had that tenacity to become great and to make Chicago her, her staple, her, the place that uh, she grew to love, and did a lot for the city. Now, when you look at, Jennifer Hudson, same thing, R. Kelly, all these great things, you know what I'm saying? But the only thing that separates this person that I'm talking about, that I want to talk about, that I want to, admire, uh, is Derrick Rose. What separates Derrick Rose from the rest of the people that I talked about, even the Kanye West, yeah, they put them on the map, but as far as through and through, not really giving up on the city, not really, uh, just doing a lot. I think, Harpo, or, Oprah, once she left Chicago, I don't think she ever did anything for the city. Kanye West, we already know he's crazy. He don't really do anything for the city in itself. Like, he doesn't come back. He doesn't do the things that you should if you really care about a city. Michelle Obama, of course, being the first lady, there's a lot of things they're limited in doing as far as like being impactful in the city. But Michael Jordan do not do anything for Chicago, and never have. He never actually lived in Chicago. He never, you never seen him out and about, what I'm saying, like during the later part of his career. Even now, like, I mean, he sold his house in Highland Park, and you never heard from him again. He barely, gets invited to the things that I mean, rightfully so. I mean, Jerry Reinsdorf is a terrible owner through and through. We also had a terrible general manager, with Kraus, but there's neither here nor there. But as far as like being an impact in the city, I don't think no one has been a better or greater impact than Derrick Rose. Just his story alone, I think a lot of young kids can relate to. I think as old as probably 43 years old to the young kids now, to see his story and feel his impact, even to today, even with having the roses, the rose shop, that came early this year, and just seeing that. And me, as you can see my figurines up here. um I do have Derrick Rose twice. I have, and I'm getting another bobblehead, and I have a lot of memorabilia from Derrick Rose. I'm gonna just tell you about how, just seeing him as a rookie, I instantly, had that connection with him. We were, particularly the same age. He's a year younger, but I think, I seen him play in high school, followed his career. Couldn't believe that a player or a person can move that fast with a basketball. I love basketball, so seeing him, do that is pretty amazing. And so, um, and then, like, I think his beginning his career, his trajectory, despite having the the few accolades. I mean, he ended up 20,000 points shorter than Michael, and of course, five MVP shorter than Mike. But like I said, it's not about accomplishments. This is about him meaning more to Chicago. I just think overall that, and this could be recency bias. It could be my age. It could be because I'm 38, and seeing Derrick Rose's entire career, in my mind. It can also, I've seen that he's done a lot of things, with gun violence, paying for people, funerals and things like that from countless of people in Inglewood. I've seen him walk down the street by himself in Chicago and just want to, just being a Chicagoan, things that we don't see most celebrities do when they are in that position, and him just wanting to relate so bad with Chicago and being in Chicago so much. Like he do not want to separate himself from Chicago, and just establishing himself, planting himself here, and just wanting to stay close to the organization. Seeing the tears when he got traded. Just seeing all these things that you didn't see from anybody else here. Kanye West, yeah, he's done things here and there, but he's become more of a distraction, a more of a negative thing uh that I think most Chicagoans do not want to associate themselves with. Uh, R. Kelly, same thing. We don't particularly want to associate himself or ourselves with him, particularly because of his, his past and his present. There's just a plethora of people. I mean, Al Capone, people love the gangster stuff, but at the same time, he was a very feared person, and yeah, he was a very notable person. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, everybody cannot be a gangster. Everybody can't be the greatest singer turn to shame. Same thing with a rapper, turn to shame. I think the closest person that probably means a lot to Chicago and you know, from a historical standpoint, and to just get away from the recency bias is probably Harold Washington. First black mayor of Chicago, and the things that he was doing and was going to do before his tragic end. And like I said, a lot of people can relate to that. Just seeing somebody that that came up and endured the struggle and then became something, and then there was a tragedy. People, I feel like, relate more to tragedy and get behind that person and make sure that they're successful, make sure that they're forever, living in our hearts and in our minds, and even embody the spirit of a good, person or whatever. And I don't know Derrick Rose personally, but the things that I've seen and watched and come to know, with him loving his mother Brenda and his brothers and things like that. Just like I said, just staying close, and just being in Chicago through and through. I think that he does mean more to Chicago than a Micheal Jordan, and I must take it further. Then Harpo, then Jennifer Hudson, then Robin Williams. You know, any Chicagoan that's been here and uh that was born here, that lived here, that somewhat kind of made an impact. I mean, even Walter Payton. I think if I was to rank it, I probably would put Walter Payton second, to be honest. Behind Derrick Rose, but I think Derrick Rose means more to Chicago than Micheal Jordan. I know this is very controversial, and I intended this to be a very controversial episode. Not to go viral or anything, but hey, I have a Bulls tattoo. What I'm saying, and the origins of this Bulls tattoo was 2011. Um, just seeing his rise from 2008 when he came into the league. Seeing him as a rookie. My very first playoff game that I saw, featured that man. It was against the Boston Celtics. That great 7-game series that we always look back and say, hey, this is probably one of the greatest playoff series in NBA history. And I went to game what was the double overtime game, and just seeing that whole series and how mature Derrick Rose was, how determined he was, and the success that he was having on the court, you could just see that he was just different. And and then the next year, it was the same thing. It was although it was an early exit from Cleveland, but I feel like it was a thing, signs of things to come. And then the third year, that's when I knew something was like just so different about this guy. And then about, I want to say December, I started going to a lot of games. This is when games was very cheap. And when I say cheap, I mean you can get a ticket for like $10 and go to the game and just hang out. Get you a hot dog, get you some nachos, and you probably don't spend no more than $25, $30 with nachos, a beer, and watching this man go crazy on the court. And then and like I said, it was his third year. He made the All-Star team for for the first time or whatever, or I think it was the second time or whatever it was. Then you just like, yeah, there's something very, saying different this year that seems magical or whatever. And then, mid February, I was like, man, this guy is really good. And guess what I do? On my 24th birthday, and this is actually my last tattoo, I went to Derrick Rose's tattoo artist that, did a lot of his tattoos, that said he did the Pudini that you see on his arm, on his left arm. He did that one. And so I did my research. I went to him. Yeah, he was fucking expensive at the time. But I said, hey, draw me this Bulls tattoo. What I'm saying? I just wanted to have something that I could relate to. And, and there was Derrick Rose's tattoo artist. And I'm like, all right, I feel connected now. I feel forever connected. I can't, unless I go and get laser removed, I'm forever. The Derrick Rose Bulls connection will always live on. So when G.Herbo said that, hey, I felt that. I'm here to defend what G.Herbo is saying, and I will go to my grave saying that Derrick Rose means more to Chicago, and everybody's probably gonna look at me like a nut because I got a tattoo, and it was because of that guy right there that I ended up getting this tattoo. But I feel like I'm not the only one that felt that way and feels that way. And so that year, and this is before I even knew he was going to even win the MVP, I went to a bunch of games. And then I went when the playoffs started, we were the number one seed. And then I went to the first two games with Indiana. And then I went to the first two games of the Eastern semifinals against Atlanta. And then when they destroyed them, they went on to play the Miami Heat, which is the first year of the Big Three. And they won the first game, and I thought there was so much promise. Not saying that I didn't have high expectations or anything like that, but I did. So I didn't want to buy, uh, initially, I didn't want to buy the Eastern Conference ticket or whatever, right? Because I'm like, I want to save on my money because I feel like this is the year we can get to the finals. That's how much confidence I had in that guy, in Derrick Rose, that I knew for a fact that we were going to the NBA Finals that year. And I knew that we were going to face the Dallas Mavericks because it just felt like it was just right. But, the powers that be, in my mind at that time, before I was even a LeBron supporter, or that I think he was the GOAT or whatever, with my own eyes, I was like, we're going to the finals. There's nothing that could stop us. We had beat the Miami Heat 3-0 that season, and I knew that we were on our way. And then, like I said, the powers that be said otherwise. And I felt like they could have at least made it a competitive series if it was going to be controlled that way. But my ass went to the closeout game. We were down 3-1, and during that game we were up the whole entire time. And this is before the era of all the threes and the barrage of threes and the high volume of threes that players take these days. And you would think that a 12-point lead with 3 minutes left is secure. But during that time, it wasn't. I mean, you just saw the referees just, help chip away that 12-point lead. It was a 4-point play by Dwayne Wade. And just, I felt like the Bulls never got the ball back after they had the 12-point lead. And it was just so heartbreaking, to endure that. And but like I said, it was his third year. So just like anybody else, you think that someone like him that just won an MVP, that just took his team to the Eastern Conference Finals, and just embody what Chicago actually, you know, like what type of city it is, and he embodied every ounce of it. You thinking that he's going to go back, time in and time out, with all the rivalries, it was probably going to be a Bulls Heat rivalry brewing at that point, because I didn't think no other team was better than us in that point in time. There was no other superstar that was better than Derrick Rose, other than LeBron, and maybe Kobe. But even Kobe kind of saw that man was on his way, because the very next year was the lockout, and then the first game of the season was that Christmas game where D.Rose hit the game winner over Kobe or over Derek Fisher or whoever it was. And so you just knew that we were going to go back time in and time out. But then that fateful first game of the playoffs against Philly in the fourth quarter, up 20, and that infamous drive to the hole, hop skip, and when he hopped, his ACL tour was on the ground, and that forever changed Chicago sports history, Chicago Bulls history, where until that point I didn't really know what an ACL. I feel like I never understood what an ACL tear was. Like, I heard about it. You knew it was kind of devastating and stuff like that, but personally, I never took interest in understanding what an ACL tear was. And so just seeing him on that ground and stuff like that, like I genuinely teared up, and it was such a traumatic, moment for me, because I had planned on. I said, we could beat Philadelphia. Like, I'm not worried about them. Like, we were the number one seed. We had just got Rip Hamilton, which was an upgrade from the, Keith Bogan and Ronnie Brewer and stuff like that. I just thought, like, we had Kyle Korver. This was Boozer last year or whatever, and Dang, and I think we got Heinrich back, and I just thought that we was just definitely good to go and repeat, and go to the Eastern Conference Finals again, because there was nobody stopping us. And then just to see him on that ground, just curled up and in agonizing pain, it just felt like it was your knee. It just felt like it was you or your brother, your cousin out there just hurting. You can't do shit about it. Um, and like I said, like when I think back on that moment, it was very heartfelt. People that was close around me can see me tearing up. Because I had plans on watching him in the later rounds. I was saving my money up so I could get me a closer seat. But yeah, I think, when that happened, everybody felt it. It was very, I think just tragedy alone, when you see somebody go through that, you kind of like wrap your heart around that person. And I think that's what G.Herbo is basically saying. I mean, I think he said it in a different way, like he's from Chicago and stuff like that. But this is my perspective and what I interpreted what he was saying. Like, I never really felt connected to Michael. You know what I'm saying? Other than being a player that played for the Bulls, like I never was entrenched in his personal life. Quite frankly, like I think a lot of people don't really know anything about his personal life. He doesn't share much, and I think that there's a lot of mystery behind him. People always say he wasn't a kind person. He has a gambling addiction. He, what I'm saying, like people reported that he was a womanizer, and shit like that. Like just hearing those things, like it don't. I mean, Derrick Rose could be those same things, but and this could be recency bias. But like I said, I mean, Derrick Rose had the little incident from his ex girlfriend, but I mean, it was thrown out or whatever. But that's neither here nor there, and I don't want to. Dive deep into like something like that, accusations and things that were alleged, but just from a Chicago fan, a Chicago boy through and through, I 100% support what G.Herbo said in saying that Derrick Rose means more to Chicago than Michael Jordan. And I'm going to stand on that hill and shout all day long. And there's no one that can argue against me. There's no one that could take back or try to make me take back what I said. And I'm going to just put this out, stamp it, and put it out there for everybody to listen and hear what T Knight has to say. And so with that said, this has probably been one of the longest episodes I'm actually going to have. It was a lot of ranting. There was some facts, not a lot of facts. That as far as statistical and because I don't know what Michael Jordan did before I was born or what he tried to do. Like I said, I just felt like he was just a mysterious person that kept his money to himself and didn't really do anything to impact the inner city Chicago. I mean, I know they had the camp or whatever, but I feel like that's more forced. But you actually seen D.Rose playing with kids and being in the midst of everything. I think I mean Michael Jordan did had a boys and girls club, but that's nothing. You know what I'm saying? What has he done for us lately? Recency bias. What has recency bias tell us about a man that supposedly put Chicago on the map? What has he done for Chicago? Not jack shit. Nothing. What has D.Rose have done and constantly do and display all the time and show that he's a Chicagoan all the time, every time. So me is going to support D.Rose, and I'm going to be at that game when his jersey gets retired, and hopefully I can get a tip or somebody tip me off and say, hey, they about to put the tickets on sale. It's going to be on this game. That way, when they put the schedule out, I can go ahead and buy my ticket. Like I was fortunate to buy that Nick game because when he retired, I said, what if one of those Nick games is going to be something that they turn into D-Rose there or something. And I got lucky. And I chose the 1-4-25 game. And, like I said, I feel connected because, even when he was on the Pistons, the Timberwolves, the Grizzlies, the Knicks the second time, I actually went to those games when he came here to Chicago. And, you know, although he didn't suit up for the Grizzlies when he played the Bulls, but I think it was a lot of factors during that time that prevented him from suiting up. I think because John Morant was hurt or whatever, or suspended. But I think that just supporting him all the time, like every single time. I think that I'm very grateful to have seen his career and to understand that his trajectory probably would have been as great as Mike, or if not close to it at least, but that's to be debated. But for right now, D.Rose is the GOAT of Chicago.
In this game, it's only right I win. So go down with the greats as deserved. You can't just write them in. We made it through all kind of sin. Born in this cold world, and hip-hop changed my life again. Hip-hop. You think you're winning, but you're in it for the fast pride.